and good afternoon. My name is Trey Reckling, and welcome to Saturday Sesh. I'm the founder and director of Academy of Cannabis Science, and we do this event every month to welcome industry professionals to talk to us about what they're passionate about, and likewise why we should share that passion. We're very pleased today to be joined by Eric Boone, longtime cannabis advocate who worked for years with Seattle Hemp Fest, was along with me, a peer of mine, formerly with the Cannabis Alliance, and recently, or at least this year, Eric has taken his whole family and they have moved to Portugal. So we're really excited to be joined by Eric today to talk about what's going on the other side of the Atlantic, and get a little taste of his experience, at least so far, as he continues his work in advocacy and moving this industry forward. Good afternoon. How you doing, Eric?
Thanks, Trey. Delighted to be here today. And just with a quick correction on the former member of the Cannabis
Oh,
Alliance, I'm still a card-carrying member, and I'm working actually on the legislative committee, and we're focusing a lot on the home grow initiatives. So I'm still got an active voice in that, and I think it's important to keep up on the legislation because I think that especially with Europe bringing down its walls of prohibition, there's a lot we can learn from the most mature adult use market in the country next to Colorado. So, um,
Yeah, and I shorted your bio too because I left out HempFest, I left out Meristematix. So why don't you do yourself better and give us a little bit more full bio for you if you don't mind.
sure. Well, I gave a brief introduction to everyone that popped online, so I'll give a just sort of a brief tour of what I'm doing now. I've been in the industry since about 2009, started in Arizona. I'm currently wearing a number of hats. Like I said, I'm in Portugal. I've always been a very global mindset sort of executive, which was an odd thing for the highly siloed cannabis industry. But now we are a global market and growing more so on a daily basis. So Meristematix.ai or .io is a predictive and prescriptive engine that is used by vertically integrated cannabis companies and actually governments as well. We're working on a couple government contracts to work on identifying ideal tax rates because overtaxation is a big issue in the industry, but it's it's not an easy question because there's a lot of politics involved in that as well. But that's what Meristematix does. It helps essentially cannabis businesses get the right product and the right amount of product to the right location at the right time and for the right price. And we have so much data in the industry, it works well with AI. Seattle Hemp Fest, everyone knows, 30-year-old protestival. I moved to Seattle in 2016, so I'm a fairly new member to Seattle Hemp Fest, but I started just showing up at the park and hanging tents. Then the pandemic hit, and I sort of put on my business hat and have been on the board of directors. And actually, this year, in sort of a solemn shift, I'm president of the board this year. Vivian McPeak, our stalwart warrior leader for the last 25 years, stepped aside to focus on some health issues this year. So it is my furtive hope that my role as Seattle Hemp Fest president is a temporary one. I'm trying to get some funds going into the organization, build up some different revenue streams other than the huge party in the park every year. We're opening hemp fests in Europe. I've already had one in the Azores here in Portugal. Very small one, but baby steps. And so yeah, we're hoping we can spread that edutainment model because for those who don't know Seattle Hemp Fest, for those 30 years it's been a leading voice in the repeal of prohibition. Jack Herer was there every year he was alive. Leaders have always spoke on our Hemposium stage from anything you could possibly imagine. And a lot of it's online now. I encourage everyone to go see our 2020 pandemic edition of HempFest. We still had some really good speakers, and you can get an idea of what it's like in real life to have all those leaders there. But we're really hoping that Seattle HempFest is just entering into its new phase and not its final one. So hopefully we'll see a HempFest International, and then Vivian will be back in the helm with Seattle HempFest, and we can have a more global message. So my time here in Portugal has been short, but we're working on a lot of legislative stuff here too. But maybe Trey has some more specific questions about that. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Yeah, absolute shout out to HempFest. If you're not aware, no matter where you live in the world, cannabis advocates owe HempFest a debt of gratitude, because you imagine doing this 20, 25, 30, almost 30 years ago, it was a very different attitude. And to even do something like that was a radical move and a risky move, but it's always been done right with the cooperation of the city and the local police. And they showed it could be done and done successfully. And so, we light small fires and move on sometimes, or sometimes we stand by the fire and continue to be warm. That fire warmed people all over and inspired a lot of folks. So much love to that effort. Eric, tell us a little bit about how you went from being a Washington guy, fully immersed in the weed industry, cannabis industry, to Portugal. So help us understand that culture shift. Like, how different is the feel on the ground there? I know Portugal decrimmed all drugs several years ago. So let's start with cannabis, and then I'll ask you about the other piece if you don't mind.
Yeah, that it's interesting you bring that up at first, because that was probably my biggest shock when I moved over here to Portugal. And yes, they did decriminalize all drugs. It wasn't a few years ago; it was over 20. It was in 2001, 2002, maybe, that they decrimmed everything. So it's been this very interesting success story that after in the economic downturn of the 90s and 80s, like that, Portugal suffered a tremendous amount of poverty, and there was amazing drug use all over, like open air drug markets. It was really bad. And so they took that assertive effort to decriminalize everything and essentially treat any sort of drug use as a sickness to be treated, not a crime to be punished. So very progressive thinking in that standpoint. And so I thought, oh my gosh, this is great. I mean, I come from Washington. I can just walk into any corner store and get whatever amazing cannabis medicine I want. And, it's going to be something similar over here in Portugal. And that is not the case. An unfortunate sort of side aspect of that decriminalization is that cannabis, although it was decriminalized, was sort of grouped together with just drugs with a capital D altogether. So, I mean, in the mindset, in the social mindset of a lot of Portuguese, heroin, cocaine, cannabis, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just all drugs, and only drug users use drugs. And so there's this phenomenal social stigma. And here I am, like the global representative of Seattle HempFest, and I'm scared to light a joint on my back balcony for fear that my 94-year-old neighbor, who we're totally good friends now, so I think maybe I'm about ready to invite her down and enjoy one. But like the social blowback of like, oh, that's a drug user there on the first floor for smoking a joint. So I mean, there's a very different mindset, which is, it's very interesting in Portugal, because I have also have to say that Portugal is probably about one of the most well lubricated populations I have ever encountered. I mean, these people enjoy their wine, they enjoy their alcohol at all times of the day. And it's not, I mean, no one seems to really talk about it as a problem here. I don't see how they cannot, because I mean, it's just such widespread alcohol, like blatant alcoholism. But they say, oh no, it's just part of Portuguese culture. So you've got literally people drinking beers on the train to work in the morning, drinking a beer with their sweet pastry. I don't even understand the flavor combination. Like, But yeah, so it's really frustrating for me as a teetotaler myself. I don't drink alcohol, but I do consume cannabis medicine. I do enjoy the mental balancing effects of various psychedelics, but no alcohol. Very try to keep sugar to a minimum. Try to keep social media to a minimum. So I'm very selective. I've even managed to really curtail my coffee lately. So I think that I'm very responsible in my quote unquote drug use, but the Portuguese have a very different mindset of what that is. So I would be painted with a different brush in spite of all of that. So it's
Yeah.
it's an interesting uphill battle.
No, very interesting, and I really didn't anticipate that. Like the So let me ask you this: how has that affected the way you approach conversations? Do you find yourself having to take a step back and kind of gauging, kind of getting a feel for somebody's like where they are on the spectrum of acceptance, or like how is your approach different than in that environment as you talk to folks about cannabis?
Sure. Well, I'd have to say that one of the benefits of bumming around this industry for as long as I have is I've gotten pretty efficient at finding my communities wherever I am on the planet. And one of the first things that I did when I was in Portugal is I actually met up with one of the organizers of the local conferences, and it was great. It was Canna Portugal last year. I gave the opening keynote. We flew out Dan Harrer. He accepted an award for his dad on Jack's birthday. What would have been Jack's birthday? So it was a really cool event and a really good way to make a splash on the Portuguese market. So like my network has grown from there. And, when I tend to have these conversations, I tend to, I just don't go randomly on the street and start talking about them. But we've also been very successful in a legislative effort as well. I actually moderated a panel about 2.5 weeks ago, where we had a representative from the government and dropped a bombshell that Portugal could theoretically go recreational by like August or September and just completely blow past everyone. So like on one side of my mouth, I just said, oh, well, there's this total stigma against it over here. And then like, but that's one of the interesting sort of vertiginous elements of being in Portugal. I mean, it's very much a two sides of the coin sort of place. Amazing place to live, very Hakuna Matata attitude. No crime at all. It's just a very safe place. I've lost my wallet like twice, and it somehow just makes it back to me. It's really weird.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a very safe place. And everyone's very friendly, but this laid back attitude also drifts over to business a little bit too. So if
Mhm.
you've got that sort of high strung, like go Western business mindset, conducting business in Portugal can be a bit frustrating. But those two aspects are directly related. Like you can't have the chillax life or work-life balance and then have people working their ass off like Americans all the time. So it's you gotta take the both sides of the coin from that standpoint. But we've made a lot of headway at the legislative level, and I was fortunate enough. We've been involved in some different activist efforts. Like I'm involved with Mães pela Cannabis, which is Mothers for Medical Cannabis, which we've done a couple marches and everything. I've written some articles for Skunk Magazine, sending those along to Viv and Julie to see if they want to write about them. But really cool, like marching right up the street. And in one of those marches, like we literally just walked right up the street of Lisbon, probably about 300-400 of us, police escort, just smoking like crazy. Like it was a really nice odor in downtown Lisbon that day. And there were some dirty looks, but there were a lot of smiles too. So
Mhm.
you can tell that the mentality is starting to change. But now there's actually legislation that's moving forward. It could die, but Portugal is also capable of pulling out some amazing surprises too. So it'll be interesting to see what the summer holds.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. So you're smoking down walking down the street, smoking. What is for, maybe not for you, the consequences for you might be different on a visa or as somebody who is not yet a citizen. What are the
Yeah.
consequences for a citizen there who's caught with a small amount of cannabis?
You see, I mean, that goes back to the decriminalization
Mhm.
aspect. I honestly could not really foresee a circumstance where there would be any noteworthy penalty unless you were
Hmm.
caught with something more than like 20 grams or something. There's also, I mean, Portugal, although they would never admit it, they have a lot of the same social problems that we have in our industry in the United States. And, these laws are not enforced the same for everyone. And I think the same would definitely go true in Portugal as well. And as a, you know, middle-aged white male, I am protected by this unfortunate shield that it's unfortunate because not everyone shares that privilege, I guess we
Hmm.
should say. But I don't really, there's never going to be any sort of I don't foresee any ramifications. They're really keen to have um, you know entrepreneurs, Western entrepreneurs in particular, in their economy. So that's and I'm already very public about it. I've
Hmm.
been giving keynotes. I've met with government officials. If anyone wanted to make a stink about it, they would have already. So the consumption of a small amount in public, the police just don't care. They've got other things to worry about. It would be similar to Seattle.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Talk to us a little bit about sustainability because you've been here just briefly about sustainability and how attitudes there or focus there might be different when it comes to cannabis. What sort of notes or what kind of things have you learned around that subject?
Yeah, that's been a true inspiration of my move over to Europe so far. That I the activist community is still very strong here, and there tends to be a broader mindset around the sustainable uses of cannabis. Like I can go down to the Auchan, which is like Fred Meyer. It's literally I live on top of it. If I had an elevator, I could drop right down into their produce section. But I can buy cannabis. I can buy hemp hearts there. And at one point, they haven't had them in a while, but I could buy full on hemp seeds. They weren't even hearts. They were a little bit rough to get down, but I mean, I found that incredible. Like, what happens if I just threw a bunch of those out in the park? I'm assuming a bunch of hemp would grow.
Right.
So I was surprised that they were selling those at essentially a grocery store, but very good nutrition. I'm seeing a lot of amazing hemp textiles being built here. I had the tremendous pleasure of meeting and becoming fairly tight friends in short order with actually, let me go grab her book. If you give me just
Okay.
a second, because this is pretty special. I don't know if my camera is going to cooperate, but
Yeah.
this is if I hold it really still.
It
Now
did.
you saw it just for a little bit there, but this
Yeah. There we
is
go.
H is for hemp by Marin Krings, and this particular edition, it is. I was fortunate enough. You can't see that, but I got number 420. There were only 700 of these books made, but it's entirely tree free. This is a custom made hemp blended paper, and Marin actually lived in her car for 3 years, just going around to different hemp production facilities, researching different sustainable aspects of hemp. And H is for hemp is literally just an alphabetical encyclopedia. Um, you know, H is for hemp, E is for whatever sustainable application there'd be, whether it be paper, whether it be hempcrete. And interestingly, Marin showed up a couple weeks ago with Mila the Hash Queen to my house. Mila is this she was the inventor of the pollinator hash maker. She'd just come back from the Emerald Cup where she'd won the Willie Nelson Lifetime Achievement Award. So I had this like cool trophy like sitting there right on my my couch. But then we all decided we were going to go visit the Canamore hempcrete facility the next day, and so a bunch of us just all got together, saw hempcrete in action. It is really extraordinary. Like you walk into these storage rooms, and the climate is notably different. Like the air does feel cleaner, and I'm not saying that it's psychological. Like you notice it right away, almost like walking into a clean. You smell the lime curing in there. It's really fascinating. But hempcrete, you know, for just to give really briefly, like because it's made out of mostly hemp hurd, it's sequestering a lot of carbon, and those bricks are carbon negative by the time they're built. Structures made with hempcrete bricks are typically carbon negative by the time they're built. And not only that, they will continue to sequester carbon as it cures over time. So you actually have air filtration, like air filtering buildings that even alkalinize the internal environment. So it's healthier for the people breathing it as well. And we're seeing a lot more hempcrete construction over here. You're seeing more hemp textiles. You're hearing a lot of more and more hemp farmers are saying, no, we're not going to grow hemp for flour. We're going to grow it for textile. And that's a lot of what I wanted to hear. We're going to grow it for seed. We're going to grow it for hurd. Just a second, please. So yeah, just someone came to the door really quickly, so I just wanted to take care of that. But yeah, so you're seeing a lot more rational horticulture of hemp for applications other than CBD flower, which was a problem at first. We were really worried people would not do that. But we're that hempcrete facility, they were getting all their hurd from France. That's now going to be produced locally here in Portugal. You have a lot of people in the Baltic states talking about hempcrete as a predominant, and we're having active conversations about this, not just like sidebar conversations, but talking about using hempcrete to rebuild Ukraine. It would be a tremendous way to make you know, lemonade out of about the worst lemons that humanity has seen in a century. So that is there are really interesting things on the sustainability front. I've been getting some amazing hemp clothing into my wardrobe now, not cottonized hemp. So I'm pretty happy to see some of this, and it's not just gunny sack looking stuff too. Like it's starting to get a little more fashion forward. You know, I'm pretty happy with some of the stuff that I'm seeing over here. So this is, I think that, and another interesting aspect is they take CBD a lot more seriously. I think that in the United States, we always sort of saw CBD as sort of like a Trojan horse to get our THC. And, you know, you do have some people who hold on and say, no, I really like I really do like CBD. But then there are, you know, plenty of us who appreciate the full benefits of an entourage effect as well. So that is CBD. It's not. It doesn't seem to be viewed in that light here. Like people tend to take it much more seriously. There are a bunch of CBD shops. There's one just about 200 meters up the street from me, and they are there. They're marking their territory on street retail for the inevitability of adult use. So they're sort of hedging their bets because I don't think those companies are making a lot of money. But and you still have authorities that come in and see that sees a bunch of sorry, my mic stand just came apart. You have a bunch of authorities still seizing product and stuff like that. So it's CBD product, and it's more of a harassment thing than anything. But you know, it's not an ideal world, but we're getting there. So and that recent legislation that was introduced, that could be a real surprise. That could be a real game changer this summer. We'll see.
And you know, we're seeing some of the same approach in southern states where the hemp shop / head shop is kind of staking a claim and saying, hey, you know, we know it's coming. We want you to be familiar with our brand, with our name, with our service. all that sort of thing. Not to assume that they will be the ones to get licenses, as we know from our transition to medical, from medical to rec. But yeah, trying to do some of that early, paving the way. Let me open the floor. Go ahead. Did you have a comment?
I did want to just briefly mention what's going on in Germany right
Oh,
now,
please.
because that was a massive surprise. Like everyone, I think everyone had sort of been hearing the buzz that Germany had announced they got a liberal government and they were going to announce an adult use program. And so everyone was eagerly anticipating with bated breath the arrival of adult use cannabis use in Germany. But what we ended up getting, they released the law as they want to pursue it, and it was pretty interesting because I mean, in the United States, we always pursued retail outlets and eschewed the consumption lounge because there's no way that you could consume cannabis and then drive home safely. It was like one of the compromises I think our industry made as to get the other stuff going. And in Germany, they've taken the absolute opposite approach. You see a lot of the social clubs in Spain, and you're getting the same phenomenon in Germany now. They're going to just open social clubs. They're not going to be consumption lounges though. There'll be membership clubs. You'll have to buy a membership and then you get your cannabis for free. You can get up to 25 grams a day, but only 50 grams per month. But then if you're 18 to 21, you have to be purchase like 10% or under weed. So like these collectives are going to have multiple SKUs and somehow managed, okay, so you're under 18, I have to give you the 1-to-1, but it's just a complete mess. And what's more, memberships aren't taxed and the weed is handed over for free. So the German government, like from my activist standpoint, I'm like, this is amazing. Like free cannabis, like just freeing the plant, very laissez-faire, hands-off approach. But the first time a conservative government comes in, they're going to be like, where's the money for this? Like, where's the money to handle the treatment programs? Where's the money for the education? And there isn't any because they're just creating a free-for-all. And I'm really worried that it's going to have negative impacts, far beyond Germany. It could theoretically harm the repeal of prohibition throughout Europe. So everyone's sort of keeping a close eye on Germany, and it was a surprise to everyone. I don't think anyone really anticipated they'd go that route. So just sort of an interesting contrast that I thought I'd throw out there as well. With that, let's open it up to the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm going to do some more reading on that. Thank you. What questions do you all have or comments for Eric at this point? And if you're, I know we got a couple people whose mics are not working, so feel free to post that up in the chat. Kim, how you doing?
Kimberly's got her hand up.
Hi, Eric. Yeah, so that is so shocking because I was, I mean, it's been a few years. I lived in Germany. We left in 2019 and it was very locked down. And even the CBD shops, like people were very hush hush. Like it was really the complete opposite. So I am shocked to hear that. I'm happy to hear that, but also worried, just like you. But what other Western European countries do you kind of see falling into this, possible legalization? France, Switzerland, Italy. Like what? I mean, do you see or hear anything about as far as where they're
Oh,
at all?
sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I actually have a booth at the end of this month at ICBC in Berlin. And then prior to ICBC is the Mary Jane Conference, which is more of a B2C conference. So I'll be in Berlin from the 24th through the 30th, attending those conferences. So Germany's seen a big turnaround. I don't know if the mentality's really changed that much. They're definitely getting more liberal about it, but they were sort of anticipated to be the first one to sort of go. And then as went Germany, so went the rest of Europe. But then Germany sort of took too much time. And Spain, in the meantime, I don't know if anyone here has been to Spain, but they've got these social clubs that are just amazing. Like back in April or May, I went to Cannabis, and ICBC in Barcelona as well. And Spanibus is big. Like I'd say it's a third of MJ BizCon. So it was definitely a good size show. And Spain is, I mean, you can legally grow up to 2 plants in your household. It's been that way for some time. The social clubs are fairly broadly accepted at this point. And they are also considering laws to legalize as well. Czech Republic has a very active cannabis community, and or I guess Czechia. It's not called Czech Republic anymore, but it's, pardon me for my old terminology, but they've got like Prague is a very active market, and we're thinking and there's also laws being considered to legalize there as well. France and Italy a little farther behind. Italy just got like Mussolini Part 2 elected as their prime minister, so I don't expect much out of her government. Very, very conservative, and you're seeing more conservative governments sort of gaining power in France as well. Marine Le Pen got pretty close last time, and so like as those conservative aspects sort of boil up throughout Europe, that's going to throw a wrench in it as well. But then, wrapping up the Iberian Peninsula, I mean, you got Spain about ready to go. Portugal is surprising everyone, and if they like, there's nothing really against it. It's just like they've got other stuff to think about, and I don't like if those of us who are intent on getting cannabis legalized in Portugal really put our foot to the metal, I'm pretty sure that we could get it done quickly. But that's not really the Portuguese way of doing stuff. It's sort of more drawn out and methodical. So yeah, you're going to see, and Czech Republic is and in Poland, you've got some stuff going on there. The Baltic states, Latvia and Lithuania in particular, strong hemp operations there. And Latvia also has a pretty active cannabis community as well. So yeah, it's all happening here. It's happening slowly but surely. And there are a couple of different aspects to it. Kimberly, you might be aware that the single drug convention of under the UN charter is kind of a big, wall in front of all of this, but it has been for the United States as well. And then Canada sort of turned around and said, well, screw the single drug convention, and just sort of did their thing anyway. But there was a new white paper recently released that really looked at the interpretation of the single convention and said, you don't even have to change it. You just need to interpret it right. And you can legalize cannabis while still following the letter and the spirit of the convention on the single drug convention on drug prevention. And that sort of dictates a lot of what happens in Brussels, which sort of dictates all of the European Union policy. But then there's also this sort of tenet of equality within the EU charter. Like if there have to be free trade borders, there has to be, if it's good enough for one, it's good enough for all, sort of thing. So once one of these companies or countries jumps in with both feet and challenges the single convention, and probably forces it to be completely redrafted, the other European countries, they're going to be a bunch of lawsuits. It's going to be a battle in Brussels. Like, are we going to shut down Germany, or are we just going to let this whole thing go? Because they can't do what we did in the United States. The European Union laws work a little bit differently. So this piecemeal thing of getting 23 states over the course of 16 years, it's going to be different in Europe. So
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very interesting. And for those of you who want to get an idea of that consumption lounge, well, those of you in Las Vegas already have some opportunity to experience cannabis lounges, and those are coming on stronger. And if you're in Washington, you can zip up the road to Vancouver and BC, who's always been pushing the line. And not only do they have cannabis lounges that have existed for a while, now they have places like the Coca Leaf Cafe that are openly selling psychedelics and microdoses and things like that. You can buy plants, you can buy peyote, and you can buy different things that are not legal, but you've got people like Mark Emery and some of that crew who continually push the line, are willing to risk being arrested and say, hey, you know, and until people step across the line and push this a little bit, things aren't going to change. So if you're close to one of those places, check them out. I'm not encouraging the use of substances, right? Go get exposed to a different way of thinking, though. To be able to sit in a cannabis lounge like the new Amsterdam Cafe in BC, and you go in, it's like a regular coffee shop, but it's got overpriced merch like shirts and stuff. But you go up to the counter, you order a coffee, and get a latte, a Pop-Tart, and then you bring your own weed, and they'll bring a bong, a grinder, and a pipe to your table. Whatever you want. You can pay an extra $5 and go downstairs and sit in the cushy lounge. It's just got more comfortable furniture, but you only got to be 19 to consume in Canada. You just got to bring your own weed in. So I know those of you in Las Vegas are ahead of most of us in the US, but I do encourage you to check it out, just because just like HempFest, the normalization of it, because you feel like giddy going in, and then you sit there, you're like, oh, why isn't this a thing?
Yeah.
Like, why all the demonization? And I still hope some states and some countries will push this from a tourism perspective, because had Washington ever focused on the tourism perspective, that happened by chance or happened as a result of, but if we had really focused on that, it'd be a much bigger market than Apple's already, right? But what? Oh, and question from PJ: how promising do you think the use of hempcrete for the rebuild of Ukraine is? We lost your mic, Eric.
I forgot I'm on double mute there. Yeah, so it's interesting because it checks a lot of boxes. There's been so much widespread devastation there that already the pollution, like all those, because that's a thing, I mean, with a concrete building, you break that up, all the toxins and everything just get leached into the soil, and it's terrible. Like you destroy a hempcrete building, hopefully because you're tired of it, not because it got bombed. It fertilizes the soil. It's just hemp that goes back into the ground. It doesn't have any disastrous effects. So I mean, it's easy to produce. Ukraine has long time been the entire Soviet Union actually has a tradition of hemp growing. As you can see here, that's actually a Soviet pen. That's an authentic one too, that was awarded to, you can see the little plants there, that was awarded to good hemp growers in the Soviet Union, like the same country that puts Brittany Griner in prison for like less than a gram of cartridge oil. So I mean, it's pretty interesting that the plant has a vocifera, like the foundation strain for a lot of the foundation genetic for a lot of our autoflowers, that originated in the Russian steppes. So I mean, there you've got a bunch of tradition and amazing land mass that nothing else will grow in, but hemp will just love it. And so, like, if you can get the production going on, especially in Ukraine, I mean, God, that just the utter devastation. You plant hemp there, have it start remediating the soil, all that carbon and just crap that was, I mean, war is dirty, I mean, and a lot of that stuff is just, so, I mean, they're going to have to start cleaning it as well as rebuilding it. Imagine if your remediation compound, and I mean, if it's really gnarly stuff, you can't use that. Like, that hemp has to be discarded. But I mean, you can get there eventually. And I mean, you're not going to take like Chernobyl hemp and build houses out of it. But you can take land that's been pretty beaten up, help restore it back to health, and with some good hemp, not using a lot of pesticides, as long as you got access to water, maybe nitrogenate the soil a little bit after a while, but it's very healthy for the land. And it's used to growing in Ukraine. It's used to growing in that region. So, and I mean, the food issue as well. We look at hemp as a, you know, a building source, but hemp seed oil is one of the most balanced, like one of the most complete proteins that you can get. Like I'm sneaking up on 50. I eat hemp protein every day. I'm in a gym every day, and I'm in the best shape of my life, uh, no doubt. And I ascribe a lot of that to just and I'm vegan. Like and so a lot of my protein just comes from hemp, and it's really good. It's really good for health, and I think that it can be food for Ukrainians. It can be building material for Ukrainians. It can be a financial windfall for Ukrainians. I've got a lovely hand carved pipe that my wife owns that was made by a Ukrainian artist, NSF, for this call, so I won't, or not safe for work for this call, so I won't show it. But just some beautiful work coming out of Ukraine. Um,
Oh, you're welcome to show it. We're open consumption here. If you got it handy.
oh no, it's the way that it's molded. It's
Oh, I got you. Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, um my wife used it for her female empowerment.
Gotcha.
So it shaped like genitals, let's put it that way.
So you talked about soil remediation. Some people might not be
Yeah.
aware that hemp, that's why we always have to be real careful and make sure that our product is tested, because the plant
Yeah.
is great about pulling things out of the soil. But some of those things are heavy metals.
Yes.
As you mentioned in passing, hemp has been used at Chernobyl to try to help clean up the soil. So it's fantastic at that, but it's a positive and negative, because if your soil is dirty, if your soil has things that are in it that you don't want in your body, the plant is going to leach those and pull those up out of the soil. So, and it all goes back to education. And one closing question I'd like to ask you, Eric, is, and because you've been exposed to a whole different environment and kind of, I imagine, recalibrating your approach, rethinking how you have these conversations. So could you talk to us a little bit about the value you see in education in this space?
Absolutely. Are you talking in just a general context or more of a European context?
No, in general.
Yeah, I mean, it is probably the single biggest priority that we as an industry have, because I mean, it's a lot of and in the United States, I think we've been pretty effective about it. I mean, the social stigmas have been broken down to a large degree. I think that the number of adults who approve legalization is well over 70% at this point. It's polling. So, I mean, the US is doing pretty well, but we're still, um, we're, it's great that the plant is getting more and more freed and that people are getting more and more access. And I would also contend that all cannabis use is medical, whether or not you're using it for that fact. However, you still have a lot of people that are walking in and saying what has the most THC and costs the least amount of money. And we know that just doesn't, that's not how it works. You know, that's a misnomer. You know, it doesn't even get you the most high if that's what you're going for. So, you know, I mean, education around that sort of thing, like just to get people to consume this plant in a more mindful manner, understand that its gifts go well beyond a nice feeling in the head. You know, the gifts it goes to connectivity with you know, the earth around you, the life around you. It goes to restoring homeostasis through your your endocannabinoid system. These are all things that we're just learning about that. I mean, the endocannabinoid system, American, like Western medicine didn't even really acknowledge it until the early 90s. So I mean, this is how much of our medical establishment, our Western medical establishment, you know, that they're always talking about, you know, their fact-based research, which in and of itself is a very closed loop, self-validating system that they don't allow new treatments to even be considered in. So yeah, we need to educate our population. We need to educate our healthcare providers in order to make sure that this plant is not just freed, but utilized in a mindful way because it's capable of giving the planet so much. And just to, to end with a quote from Jack Harry, I don't know if hemp will end up saving the planet, but I think it's the only thing that can.
Thank you very much. And thanks for your time today. I know we're over. We appreciate you all for hanging with us through some early technical difficulty on the call. Just a couple shout outs. Oh, Eric, there's a question for you in the chat. I want to point that out about your brand of hemp milk or a hemp product. I do want to shout out for Joint Rivers once again, who's having a 5-year anniversary big celebration on the weekend of the solstice, the 17th and 18th of this month. So Saturday and Sunday, make sure you to check that out. We, our next time back, we're going to have the first Saturday in July, we're going to have a Saturday Sesh program called Behind the Counter, talking about cannabis retail. And so if you want to come on and talk about behind the counter and what's going on in cannabis retail, we're going to have a panel of folks here to talk about that. And we're very happy to finally offer Psychedelics 101 in psilocybin. So June 26th, that class goes live. So if you have an interest in the research around psilocybin, what we know, what we want to know, microdosing, etc., you can already enroll for that. Class doesn't begin until the 26th, but we're really excited to begin to get into that territory. And then we'll follow that up with Psychedelics 101 LSD as a follow-up class, and we'll continue on with DMT and some others. So thank you very much for being here with us today. Much love to all of you. Have a great, happy, and safe weekend. And make sure to check out our YouTube channel. We're going to see Cannabis Moms with Kim Davis and a number of folks, and dozens of hours of free content. Eric, thank you so much. I know it's late for you, so I hope you can still get out and enjoy your Saturday night, have some Portuguese wine and maybe a little bud. But thanks again for being our friend. Thanks for sharing your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And happy Portugal Day, everyone.